Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Let's Talk Morning Show live. Right now, it's just me. I should be joined by Dennis at some point for at least a little while. He's actually pretty busy this morning with his regular job that kind of turned into I guess, a little bit of a nightmare for him. So he's not going to really be a part of the show too much today, but he will be joining me for a little bit. But hey, we still got a live show to do. So we're going to be actually doing this one mostly on the fly because of that. Kind of going to be just winging it. So if you got questions and stuff, feel free to keep throwing them in and I'll answer them. But I do have some topics that I did want to discuss. You know, we're kind of in the middle of spooky season. Yesterday was the first day of fall. So there's always plenty to talk about when we get into that time of the year, just because of the movies that are available to us. Mr. Smelly Potato, that is our channel bankroll member. Good morning, buddy. Thanks for stopping in right away, too. I appreciate that. Stacy's here. How you doing today? Have you been to Mystery Movie Mondays? I haven't been to Mystery Movie Mondays. I know AMC does that. I think Regal does their own version of that too. You can usually kind of guess what it's gonna be, but I haven't gone yet just because if it ends up being a movie that I wasn't like really interested in seeing, I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed. But I guess that's kind of part of it, right? Is the mystery of it all. That's kind of the thrill. Like maybe it's a movie you didn't want to see. You're forced to watch it since you're already there, paid for the ticket. And you know what? You sit through it and you're like, that was better than I thought. I mean, that's happened to me plenty of times, even recently with Freakier Friday. I had no desire to see Freakier Friday. I was like, okay, that looks like a Disney Plus movie that they're releasing in theaters, trying to capitalize on the people who like the Freaky Friday that came out in 2003, not necessarily the people who are fans. What's it called? What Dennis just texted me, so he'll be a second. So he's just updating his computer. So he's working it, but it's no big deal. It's no big deal. He's all messed up. He said so. He'll be on in a second, Dennis. He's just letting me know. But anyway, as far as like Freaky Friday, I expected nothing with that. Like I really had no anticipation just because I liked Freaky Friday when it came out. Saw it. Was like, all right, Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan were good. Of the time, that was like directed right at me and my age group. So I liked it. But there was a certain group of people like my wife who absolutely loved Freaky Friday, loved Jamie Lee Curtis, loved that kind of movie, who couldn't wait to actually go and see that. Forced me to go see it, and I'm glad she did because I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's playing with your nostalgia for that time, which did work on me. Nostalgia is a tricky thing. It always works on me, actually. I'm always a little bit embarrassed about that, but it does. I think it's funny going to a movie blind and not watching a preview. Well, I usually won't watch the previews because regardless, I try, even when I go to a movie, I try and get there after the previews. So like I had it pretty well on my local AMC because that's usually the only place because I have the AMC A-list pass. So I'm always going to go to the AMC if I can, just because it's kind of built into my fee. So I have it timed out where it's pretty much a half hour to the second that they start the movie at this AMC. So I usually try and make sure that I'm in the theater then and miss the previews. But if the previews are on, I try and tune out. I'm pretty good at doing that just because I don't like to go into a movie without knowing as much as possible. It's just that I feel like trailers today are just not like the trailers of yesteryear. Like, they used to be like, they kind of just sold you on the actors in the movie, maybe give you a little bit of the plot, a very slight outline. Now it's like they give away some of the biggest moments in movies. And I mean, like, what came out, was it 2 years ago now? What was that movie from the Radio Silence guys? I can't remember. It was, I don't want to even say it now because I don't want to spoil it. But that one, the trailer gave away everything. Hey, buddy. Happy Tuesday. What's up, buddy? Glad you can stop in here, David, a.k.a. Shamrock Balls, the co-host of Let's Talk Movies podcast. Glad to see you drop that loser, Dennis. Yeah, I kicked him to the curb. So he's, what's it called? Yeah, he's still working on it, but it's understandable. I just told him he didn't even have to come on here today if he didn't want to. He just want to stop in and at least talk to you guys for a little while before he ran the work. But things happen. That's life, unfortunately. That's just how we all are. So I figured, hey, I'll just wing this and jump on in, make it work. But I can always replace him. I mean, David can just jump in here. I have a light right here. I can, have him pop in as a co-host if need be. But it doesn't really matter. One thing I thought that was pretty interesting, just looking at like how the box office was last weekend. It's not that surprising that a lot of the like big new releases didn't do well at the box office. But what is surprising is that Dragon Slayer is that or no, Demon Slayer is number 1 at the box office, just proving that anime really does move movie tickets now. I've never really been a big anime fan, but I know a lot of people are anime fans, so it's pretty cool to see that like that's the kind of the movies that do well at the box office where movies like him didn't and I wanted to actually get out there and try and see him because even though people I saw people already say like I can't believe Jordan Peele did such a bad job with this movie. Jordan Peele produced the movie, he didn't direct it. That was just part of their marketing to actually sell the movie was like from Jordan Peele. Well, he produced it, but it wasn't directed by him. I don't think his next directorial directed film is even coming out until 2027 now, if I'm correct. I think it got bumped. Demon Slayer was packed when I went. How was that, Mr. Smelly Potato? Was it good? Like, do you have to watch the show? Because I know I don't even think that's the first Demon Slayer movie, if I'm correct. That's always been my biggest hurdle when it comes to anime, is that there's so much of it. I was trying to watch it. My buddy at work is always trying to get me to watch it. He even offered to pay me to watch it because he just wanted my thoughts. I'm like, I'm not going to take your money just because it's a timing thing. It's Attack on Titan. I watched like the first like 15 episodes and it was great. And I think that only has 96, and I was gonna keep going. It's just like it's so much, and then you hear things like about like One Piece, which is like I think if you start now, I might finish before I die in 80 years. So it's like it's a lot to keep up with, but it's something I also feel like you get a little bit that's something you get FOMO with sometimes. It's like you feel like you're missing out on like something that's kind of it's been popular since I was a kid. Like I'm not here in the United States, I'm sure a lot of you guys remember in the morning, like at least where I lived, they would I don't remember what channel this was, but they would play Dragon Ball Z and then Pokemon. So I usually would watch those in the morning before I went to school. So that's kind of like my first introduction. And I collected like Pokemon cards like around the first run, and then I kind of fell out of it. And that was kind of introduction to anime. It was good. I was lost because somebody had to watch Eddie. Okay, see before, but I went in with some guys from work. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, so at least you just waiting for the film. So at least the movie was still enjoyable, even though not knowing what's going on. Because that's pretty much the only reason I wouldn't even go. I'll try an anime like Perfect Blue, and there's so many great anime films out there. It's just it's always felt like something that at this point in my life, I've kind of missed the boat on, and I might be too late to go back and try and get into it when there's already so much other film that I've missed out on, and then forget about it if it's video games and sports. It all kind of becomes like a timing thing. Um, But this week we got Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. So that's the big one coming out. I'm seeing that on Friday. Some people have been fortunate to already see it, and they're calling it a masterpiece. That's one where the trailers I don't think are giving anything away, even though I think I've kind of figured out the basic plot to the movie. Just from what I've seen, kind of piecing it together, even though again I didn't want to see these trailers, but they kind of stuff them down your throat sometimes, especially like on TV right now. But anytime Leonardo DiCaprio's in a movie, I'm always going to see it, and that's always the best way to get my wife to come see a movie with me. I was trying to get her to watch the other Paul Thomas Anderson movies with me before we went. I was like, "Come on, like at least try Boogie Nights." And I'm not going to show you The Master. I get you might not like that or Inherent Vice, but maybe this or There Will Be Blood, like some of the big ones. I'm like, maybe Phantom Thread. I'm like, you like fashion? I'm throwing her an olive branch. No, I'm not seeing it for that. I'm going to see because I want to see Leo and what's her name's in it too. Tiana Taylor, right? So like she was great, by the way. So like that's what's getting her in the theater, which I guess that's what the marketing is surrounding is the big time actors. That's how we move the needle on some of our significant others because there's no other way to get her in the theater. I can't sell her like when Licorice Pizza came out a couple of years ago. I had to see that one by myself because she hadn't. She was one of those people with the big age gap between Cooper Hoffman and what's her name, which I understand. It was it's a little bit strange, but it wasn't like a big deal. I still absolutely love Licorice Pizza. It's not PTA's best movie. I still think Boogie Nights is, which like everyone, yeah, Boogie Nights. I still think Boogie Nights has some of the best scenes and takes place in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. So of course that's something that's right up my alley. Great acting in that one. Mark Wahlberg, probably still his best acting performance. John C. Riley too. He's another one because his character is hysterical. William H. Macy's character, you feel bad for the poor guy and everything that ends up happening to him. Terrible way to start the 80s for him. Last day in the 80s, just terrible way to start it. I did have a question that I was going to answer, and this is actually from our channel. member, and it's hey John, got a good question for the live stream. Top five most underrated actors and actresses of all time. So I actually made a list for this. Let me see what Dennis just said. He said I'm going to see about using my iPad. So Dennis might jump on in a second as well. Uh, Again, sorry guys about the issues with this morning show. It's no so kind of doing it a little bit blind, but hopefully it's still entertaining because that's all I'm really going for here. But top five most underrated actor or actresses of all time. So I made a list actually, and I just kind of was shooting it because I this came in last night and I kind of just threw it together before the show starts. But just made a list, no specific order. But John Lithgow, I always felt like John Lithgow was a very underrated actor. Somebody, he maybe if you were around at the time in like the late 70s and throughout the 1980s, you might have been like, no, he's not underrated because of movies like Blowout, where he was phenomenal in it. Like he was as the bad guy, he always had some very iconic roles. Then you watch movies like Terms of Endearment, where you kind of like that's where you kind of see like the John Lithgow of today, like the guy who's like more of a father figure, a loving kind of guy. But he could also really play those really dark characters. He plays the priest in Footloose. He's the guy trying to stop everyone else from dancing. He doesn't want the town dancing, but you can understand his point of view and where he's coming from. He does it with that, like John Lithgow can be very stern, but he can also he's always very lighthearted, very like what was he was the Trinity killer in Dexter as well, which was that's the best season of that show. I haven't actually watched any of the reboots. I've heard mixed things on because there's been like a couple, right? There's a prequel show and there's a sequel series, I believe, all going on at the same time, different networks. I really don't know. Haven't kept up because the show itself really let me down during its initial run with how it ended. But John Lithgow's season was phenomenal, and he was on 30 Rock. I also really like him on, or no, Third Rock from the Sun. I also really liked him as the father in How I Met Your Mother as Barney Stinson's father. He could do those kinds of things. Yeah, Dennis is he's just I'm just texting him real quick. Just real quick, just letting him know it's okay. This is something we'll work out after the show when I have to release him from his contract and wish him his best in his future endeavors. Uh, but yeah, so John Lithgow, getting back to him. Blowout, one of the best movie villains of all time, in my opinion. I still think that is Brian De Palma's best film. You might be like, oh, what about Untouchables or, Scarface? Love those movies, but Blowout, I also, I'm a big film fan, obviously. And one thing about that is how John Travolta's character is collecting audio, the way he's going around and like the way he has to pick up audio for the time and just record sounds and everything. And then that's how it gets edited into the film. Obviously, he's doing it for a low budget film, but it's still cool to see how they did this. The 360 shot they do in the middle of the movie where they like show his entire office and how he's moving around. It's fantastic. And they did that in the early 1980s. The only question I always had about Blowout was I never felt like Nancy Allen was perfectly cast. And of course, she was Brian De Palma's wife at the time, but I always felt like they could have done a little better. Nancy Allen to me was only really good in RoboCop. She'll always just be, what's her name to me. So that's always where I'll always go to when it comes to Nancy Allen. I just don't think she works that well in Blowout. And even in Carrie, she's fine in Carrie. John Travolta's fine in Carrie, but Travolta's way better in Blowout than her. So that was always my biggest flaw. But John Lithgow was always, always a great actor. And I feel like he never really got the true recognition he deserved. Next up on the list. Now, this one I actually went back and forth with because I'm sure a lot of you guys remember in the early 2000s when Colin Farrell came on the scene and he was just this regular guy, kind of felt like a plug and play kind of actor. You remember movies like SWAT. That's kind of where a lot of us first came to Colin Farrell, and they were like really pushing him. He's Bullseye in the first Daredevil movie. He was fine, actually. Everyone's kind of overacting in that movie. Michael Clark Duncan's great in that movie as well. It's just that's the kind of movie that was. So you were kind of seeing that Hollywood was trying to mold Colin Farrell into this kind of actor that they could put in all of these summer blockbusters, gonna move tickets. He's got this charm to him. A lot of people probably didn't even realize he was an Irish guy just because they always threw the American accent on him. But unless you saw him in interviews, or if you were a Scrubs fan, if you were watching Scrubs back in the day, he had a great appearance on that in one episode where he knocked the guy out at a bar, and then he actually drove him to the hospital and he stayed with him. And the doctors call the cops on him, and he's still so nice. And forgives him and comes back even after being arrested. But he's actually using his Irish accent. Oh, sorry about that. Allergies this time of the year. Like I said, second day of fall. But then as time went on, like I felt like Colin Farrell kind of fell to the wayside. You kind of didn't hear about him too much. And then he started popping up again in some big time like actors who were going for Academy Award directors, like those kinds of actors, like Martin McDonough, or who was doing the other movies that like was it Yorgos Lanthimos or the Lobster and everything like that. So he came around like with the Lobster and In Bruges, and people were like, holy shit, Colin Farrell, not only is he a phenomenal actor, he can carry the entire film. He can be a great lead actor in an emotional drama. Like In Bruges is very much a dark comedy, and Martin McDonough knows how to make those. And Colin Farrell's perfect in that. What was the movie that came out a couple of years ago that I always pronounced the name wrong? Which I would love to watch again, like with him, and I'm always forgetting the name of this movie. And is there issues with the comments again? Because I noticed that the comments stopped. If that happened again from last week, let me double check. If not, let me know as well. I'm gonna double check right now because I know there was a problem last week. But hopefully there is no problem. But I just want to just double check. But if everything's going good in the comments, let me know as well. There was that issue last week. Let me see. Says that it's working. No, it's not made for kids, so quarantine catting. What's wrong? Okay. Seems like everything should be good. Just want to double check after last week's issues. All right, good. David will let me know. Comments are fine. Good. All right, thanks, buddy. Appreciate you letting me know. So getting back to Colin Farrell. Yeah, just an actor who I don't feel like was truly appreciated in his time. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey with Colin Farrell. Yeah, that's the other movie that came out this past weekend that didn't do good at the box office, which again, it's a real shame. That was something that looks very good. It's just this is kind of the push and pull we have. That movie I don't think was marketed at all. I saw one trailer for it in one movie that I saw, and that was it. I didn't see one TV spot for it. And the only time I'm watching TV spots are on Sunday or when football's on. So that's the only time I'll ever see any kind of trailer. And I didn't see one for that. Saw plenty for him. And pretty funny that they're having him trailers through all of these NFL commercials, despite the fact they don't have the NFL license. So, it's a made up team like any given Sunday. But you get Marlon Wayans and that, who was trying to say like, "Hey, I've been in some movies that have reviewed pretty bad as well. You got to see it for yourself," which is true. You do got to judge a movie for yourself before you actually judge it based on what everybody else is saying about it. But I'm kind of excited. I'll still probably end up seeing it. Right? Obviously, I'm looking most forward to one battle after another more than anything else right now with Leah. But yeah, Colin Farrell. I keep getting off topic on him. He was also one of the best parts of True Detective season 2. The first season was obviously the best. I still think the third season was pretty good. The second season really felt like Vince Vaughn wasn't good. I liked Rachel McAdams in it, but it just didn't feel like it had the same exact charm as the other ones. Shamrock says, I remember first seeing Colin Farrell in Minority Report. Thought he was great. Spielberg tutored him along as the next big thing. Personally, I think he's a bit hammy. I think that's how he was. I always felt like that's like kind of what he was at the time. I think he's actually gotten better as an actor as time has gone on. Minority Report, yeah, he was good. You do get to kind of see the Colin Farrell of the future. That was like kind of the one difference of a standout performance. And then he fell off. He did have a bit of a drinking problem. I think a drinking and a drug problem. I know that because he was in 2006's Miami Vice, and he says he does not remember making that movie at all. If you can't remember making a film, yeah, you got a bit of a problem, but he's aware of it at least. So he's corrected the issue. But I imagine he was going through that time, which, by the way, I know that Miami Vice has like all these production issues. I think they filmed it like during a hurricane and everything. I still love that movie, and I don't know where our 4K Blu-ray is for it. We were supposed to get that from Shout Select, and they had it on the site, took it down. There was all these rumors that it was a Paramount issue, but we haven't gotten it yet. So very, very frustrating because a lot of us do like that movie, even though again, not really the best looking movie and has some issues. Good afternoon, John. I'm going to see The Long Walk tomorrow. Oh, that's awesome. If you come to the live show tomorrow night, let me know what you thought about that because I'm very curious because that's another movie that it didn't do great at the box office, but it did better than him and Long Bold Beautiful Journey or Big Bold Beautiful Journey. Um, that movie I thought was very good. One of the better films of the year was The Long Walk, actually. Based on a Stephen King novel. I heard some complaints which were pretty funny about The Long Walk for people who have seen it who didn't love the ending without spoiling it. Not necessarily because they disliked the choice of the ending, but because they didn't like the fact that it ends. Which I think raises more modern film problems for a lot of like modern film fans who don't necessarily watch movies that much. Is they don't love like the movies that they always want to know what happened the next day. They can't let a movie just end. Like it has to. I think they've gotten very used to how TV shows are, where we get a prologue, an epilogue, and everything, where we kind of like put the show into context. I'll let you know when I think, mate. I appreciate it. I would really like to know, buddy. Just because I don't think people are just like allowed to let a movie obviously it's different from an ambiguous ending like it, Inception. Inception has a very ambiguous ending. Like it's very like what left open to the viewer. Like the movie's what is the Internal Affairs? That's one I absolutely love. And it's very much a product, even though it came out in the early 1990s, it's a product of the late 1980s where, okay, we solved our problem. That's it. The movie's over. Stakeout does this. I love this aspect. I think we just talked about in Judgment Night. When it's over, it's over. I just think that modern day film fans can't accept like different kinds of endings. Oh, I'm going Thursday. LOL. Oh, no worries. Either way, or when you see it, I'd be interested to find out what you thought of it. I like phone. Oh, Phone Booth was great. That was Joel Schumacher actually who directed that movie. Like that was one where people seem to forget that he even directed it because obviously after Batman and Robin, that was it. Everything Joel Schumacher did before Batman and everything he did after Batman will never be remembered. He'll always be remembered for putting nipples on the Batsuit and putting an ass crack on the Batsuit and making sure to get a close up of that. That's what Joel Schumacher's legacy will be, and that's a shame because the guy directed Lost Boys, Flatliners, Falling Down, and movies like Phone Booth, which take place in one location. And he brings back Kiefer Sutherland, the guy he worked with a couple times in the past. Clearly, great working relationship. Great movie. Yeah, that's one I forget about that one. I'm guilty, just as anybody is guilty of that. I saw Interstellar on IMAX last night. Best movie ever on IMAX. I still haven't seen Interstellar in IMAX. I missed. This is one of my biggest movie regrets because I am a huge Interstellar fan. I know that David, aka Shamrock Ball, is not the biggest Nolan fan. I am a big Nolan fan. I've always really enjoyed his movies. Now, I do agree with David on like sometimes his movies on rewatch don't hold up as well. They don't hold up as well to the light. Like the foundation of the film, which is the story, might not make that much sense. You're able to poke holes in it. For example, The Dark Knight. I've cooled a lot on The Dark Knight, but I do think that Interstellar and Oppenheimer are both his masterpieces, his magnum opuses, if you will. Like they're both great 10 out of 10 films. And I never got to see Interstellar in IMAX. I'm hoping to go see it at some point in 70 millimeter IMAX. And the next time it's doing that in the city, I will definitely go and see it as long as I can get off of work. Because it's like, it is one of those things like I feel like you got to do once just because it's such a phenomenal film. I said that it's our modern day 2001 A Space Odyssey, which might be like, some might say that's an over exaggeration because 2001 is a masterpiece. But for this generation, I could always watch that movie, get taken in, get swept up in it, and just get blown away by it. And I would love to see that in IMAX. When it came out, I missed it in theaters. So I waited till the Blu-ray release, bought it because it was Nolan, and I watched it and blown away. I broke down crying watching that movie like the first time twice, like especially when Matthew McConaughey, all that time passes and he gets those messages from his kids, like that killed me. Loved it. Had to watch the movie the next day. Loved it again. So it had its hooks in me like right away. So I thought that was one that was just phenomenal. So I just can't wait to eventually see that. I'm very jealous. The first movie I saw Colin Farrell in was Tigerland. Oh, he was terrific in it, and I never knew he was Irish. That was the thing. They kind of masked that from us for a while. Totally agree. Yeah. So that was I said that as well when it first came out. Yeah, it was so at least I wasn't the only one. But a lot of people, I don't know if you remember the first critical reaction to it in 2014, even critics that I really liked who kind of have come around on it, were saying that that was like Nolan's first miss, which just shows you that sometimes when a movie comes out, people kind of miss the boat on it a little bit. I don't know what it is. Like, I think people get wrapped up in other people's reviews sometimes, and they're afraid to like say something different. Like, if they really were blown away by it, but they like come out of the theater and say they saw it with other critics, and they're like, yeah, no, I just wasn't feeling it. There's always the people that get in the crowd and they're afraid to like, and they're like, oh no, yeah, no, this is why they might take their opinion a little bit, just at this is the fear of sounding different or being a contrarian. That's always something that a lot of people have a big fear of, is like being different, because especially in the world of the internet, you say something that's not the standard, like people come after you, like how could you think that, like what's wrong with you? It's like, you ever heard of the word nuance? Like we're all different, we all have different opinions on things, and that can obviously carry over to film. Like, hey, I'm never going to take away like you loving something, but if I don't love something, like that's okay too, that's cool. It's just that's how things work. There's the dogs, they're saying good morning as always. So there's always something to it that people I don't think people seem to understand when it comes to things like that. Understanding that like you could feel different about something and still respect someone else's opinion on it. We talked about that a lot last week. So that's always how. What's your thoughts on Total Recall remake with Colin Farrell? Not a big fan of it. I thought they sucked the life out of it, along with all the color. Like the original Total Recall is very much a Paul Verhoeven film. It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, so people might think, oh, it's mostly an Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle. No, like this is definitely the guy who directed RoboCop, definitely the guy who would eventually go on and direct Starship Troopers. There's a lot more to say in that film, and they tried to take all that and bring it over to the Colin Farrell version. It's just that it felt so lifeless. That's one where the look of the film totally ruins it. And Colin Farrell's fine in it. I actually don't really have a problem with it, but that's what I mean. That's kind of like with them trying to put Colin Farrell in the lead in a blockbuster, and they made a mistake, in my opinion. That's just not where he belonged. It just doesn't work. You're kind of wasting his acting chops. I'm really trying to remember the film because I would really like to show my wife this movie, but I know she'll hate it because it's very much a dark film. But she loves Colin Farrell. Like with this list, that's the reason why the first two names that popped in my mind as far as underrated actors and actresses go was Colin Farrell and the one we'll talk about later. Not to spoil, because I do think he's the most underrated actor of all time. But the reason why Colin Farrell is because my wife just loves him and has always said, I don't understand why they don't bring him up as much. And I'm like, it's because of his early career. They just didn't understand him in his early, like what he did. Like really, SWAT is like the standout. I don't know how many people wasn't Jeremy Renner in that too? I think he was the bad guy. Somebody was, or was it? Might have been Dylan. I don't remember. It's been so long since I saw SWAT, but I probably watched SWAT in 2004, 2005, like 20 times. But then it just stopped. It falls into like Assault on Precinct 13 kind of genre. My mate forced me to go and see it at Glasgow Film Theaters because it was IMAX. I was blown away. See, that's awesome. Like, I wish somebody would have done that for me. I truly missed out. I felt I was genuinely sad that I missed it in theaters. Like, there's sometimes timing doesn't work. I miss movies in theaters now all the time just because they don't put them in the theaters by me, or if they do, it's like a very short window. Like Spinal Tap 2. Like, I think it was a 1 day, 1 time kind of deal. Like, and I'm very curious as to why, but then I'm not surprised when I see the box office and the movies that do well and the movies that don't. Certain things are just not going to do well at the box office anymore. John, this will tie into the Batman. That's right, Colin Farrell. That's one. I know that David's not the world's biggest the Batman fan, and I don't know if you've seen the Penguin show, but I thought Penguin, where Colin Farrell starred in it, phenomenal. That's somebody who falls into a character. Given you might know it was Colin Farrell if you saw him without the whole Penguin getup, but he was perfect as Penguin. And obviously, I feel like he was taking a lot from Tony Soprano there, James Gandolfini's performance in The Sopranos, especially since the Penguin show feels like The Sopranos set in the Batman universe, the Matt Reeves universe that they created. But he is hysterical in the Batman, but he's also scary. And then the show itself actually explores the character a little more and makes you understand him a little bit more. And Colin Farrell, despite the fact, he said how much he absolutely hates the makeup, which can you blame him? It's probably terrible putting those prosthetics on each and every single day. So I don't blame him at all for that. But it's just funny to see him talk like with his Irish accent after, hearing him actually speak in the movie. Like, you don't realize that is Colin Farrell. Ah, what are you showing me here? Come on. Like, he's great. But he's like a B. You think he's a B level kind of guy until you get to the show where they really unfold the layers on that character. John, this will tie in with the Batman thoughts. Everyone ranted and raved about Farrell's performance, and he was just a character, fat Italian mobster. Laugh out loud. I just don't rate it. Hey, listen, that's your opinion, buddy. I get it. I admired the performance. I liked the Penguin show. I thought it was great. I like the Batman more than you. I really love the Michael Giacchino score. Thought the Riddler was great in that movie. Is it a perfect film? No, obviously. You guys know where I stand with Batman 89's being the best. I put Batman Begins at number 2. I mean, I am a huge Batman fan. Like, that's my favorite superhero. But I'll admit, I mean, come on. Like, that's a lot like a Halloween. So there's been some real lows in the Batman franchise, a lot of reboots. Some real misses. Martha got involved. That ruined some things for a lot of people, including myself. So can't really say that Batman's been perfect throughout history. And why didn't they just go? Why did they just cast a big guy? To me, he was just playing a character of Tony. It did feel a lot like Tony Soprano, but I mean, maybe his working relationship with WB. I'm not sure. I thought he did a great job. Like, he has some of my favorite scenes in the Batman. I also really love how he was on the show. I really thought, like, I don't get to watch as many TV shows anymore just because I have to watch so many movies. So I miss out on a lot of shows. But like certain things like that where it's going to tie into the movie, even though Marvel has burnt me out on that completely, of forcing me to watch TV shows that I have no desire to watch just because it's going to tie into the movie. Thunderbolts, man. It kind of hurts a little bit, but for this, it kind of felt like it was going to be an actual continuation of the Batman, and I like the atmosphere of the Batman. Obviously, took a ton of inspiration from Seven and David Fincher films, but sometimes when you have a personal taste for something, it kind of bleeds in, and I like that. I like the darker tone of that Batman movie. Feels like a kind of a mixture of, if the Christopher Nolan movies were more serious, more realistic, they felt like they were in Chicago and Pittsburgh or wherever they filmed. Didn't really feel like Gotham City, whereas Tim Burton created his Gotham cities. Even Joel Schumacher, those neon cities, at least it was a vision. It felt like something that wasn't real. But once we get to, like, I guess the Zack Snyderverse kind of did this a little bit different as well. They kind of created their own versions of Gotham cities and Metropolis. They just were so CGI heavy. It was kind of hard to believe. But then fast forward to now, I felt like the Batman's Gotham City, yeah, it looks a lot like New York City, but it also feels like a lived-in kind of world where you'd have to be a fan of like DC and to understand certain things. It doesn't necessarily take the real world and just plop Batman in it. It's taking Batman, his criminals, his world, and bringing it over to a new universe, and that's a big reason why I liked it. It just felt like they were using real sets again. The dark look of the movie. Ryan Patterson, I thought, did a phenomenal job. Speaking of underrated actors, that guy got typecast so fast just because of the Twilight movies. Now, I've never watched the Twilight movies. I think I watched one or two maybe in school because I was in high school when these were coming out, or middle school or something like that. So obviously I was around people who the only movies they would watch were the Twilight movies, but they wrote Robert Patterson off right away as the guy from Twilight, not remembering that there's been plenty of great actors cast as these type of as one role actors. Mark Hamill, speaking of The Long Walk, phenomenal performance in that. I mean, we all knew he was a great voice actor. If anyone was a fan of the Batman the Animated Series, this guy was the Joker and is arguably the best Joker. Of course, I think it's Jack Nicholson, but he's kind of playing in the same vein of that. Let's see what Buddy says. Gotham City is basically Glasgow where they filmed the Batman. LOL. That is true, actually. I remember I forgot about the clips. I've never been there, but I do remember seeing pictures of Robert Patterson and Zoe Kravitz on the motorcycles, the scene where they go the separate ways. I remember seeing the shots of them filming that. And yeah, I guess if that's where they filmed it, it definitely is pretty obvious. At least, the outer city shots, which look beautiful. But hey, you're taking like New York City, moving it to Glasgow. I guess that's kind of how you create this world. I mean, the only person who truly created like a whole new world was Tim Burton. built actual Gotham City in Pinewood Studios twice, different Gotham cities, even though they're the same Gotham City. That's like the true one. Of course, I'm a little bit biased. That's my favorite Batman film is Batman 89, but I prefer it when they create the worlds. I do love the Dark Knight films. The Dark Knight Rises, and I do like Batman Begins more than the Dark Knight at this point, but I do like it when they create the worlds a little bit more. They all have their redeeming qualities. The new Running Man movie was filmed in Glasgow. Really? Okay. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope I am. I didn't know that. I'm excited to see that because again, that's something based on a Stephen King novel. Do you prefer Keaton or Bale? Nanga, I've always been a fan of Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's also one of my all-time favorite actors, so that's something that works well for me. Christian Bale's there ever really, if I was gonna rank the Batmans off the top of my head, the ones that we've gotten in live action, just working my way up, I'd probably put down at the bottom, surprisingly, Val Kilmer. I'd probably put Val Kilmer, then George Clooney, Adam West above them. Um, yeah, I know people would say, well, how could you put George Clooney above Val Kilmer? I just feel like Val Kilmer is so flat in Batman Forever. I like Batman Forever more than Batman and Robin, but I just feel like he's very flat. And when you watch the Val documentary and and he talks about being in the suit and how much he hated it and how he couldn't hear, makes a lot of sense, that performance then. But at least you could say George, and then you can say George Clooney's just being George Clooney. He's not even trying. True, but George Clooney not even trying. I still think it's a little bit better than Val Kilmer. Adam West is great. It's just he's of the time. That 1960s Batman movie is very much of the time. He is phenomenal. Then when you get like into the upper echelons of the Batmans, you get Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, I don't like his movies. I don't like the Ben Affleck Batman movies. Love Ben Affleck, the actor, though. And I love his twist on Batman. And I love his twist on Bruce Wayne. I thought he did a great job in that movie. In Batman versus Superman. Then he gets little cameo appearances throughout the rest until they again ruined him. But I liked his Batman. I thought he did a good job. I just felt like unfortunately he was saddled with some really bad films around him. Batman versus Superman, leaving that theater was one of the most disappointed times I ever felt leaving a movie theater. Really wish that would have been a little bit better. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. uh Must be great tax breaks. It must be if that's where they keep filming. Like that's always the sign. In the United States now, they've been filming a lot more in Georgia. They can save some money in Georgia. But as you move up the list in the top three, I put Robert Patterson at number 3. Only got to see him once. He's a great Batman. Felt like we haven't seen enough of Bruce Wayne, though, so can't really move him higher than that. Then the top 2, I'd go Christian Bale at number 2. Thought the 3 films he was in was phenomenal. Batman voice could be a little bit ridiculous at times. And like I always just think of that. It was a funnier dot that did like, "Are you okay?" Because it sounds like you have a bad case of throat cancer. Like, he really turned up the Batman voice. Appreciate the effort, but sometimes it didn't work. So felt a little cheesy. But his Bruce Wayne, like he was playing Batman with the 3 characters. The true 3 characters. There's Batman. There's the Bruce Wayne that the public sees, and then there's the Bruce Wayne that is in private, the one that Alfred sees, the one that Rachel sees, the true Bruce Wayne, the real person. That's where I think Christian Bale really shined. And, obviously, once we get to my number 1, again, I am a huge Batman fan. I got to put my own personal bias to the side, but I'm also a huge Michael Keaton fan, and Batman 89 checks a ton of boxes. I'm a big Tim Burton fan. I'm a big Prince fan, and I'm a big Danny Elfman fan. So the stars aligned when it came to Batman 89, and you put Michael Keaton in there as Batman, and yeah, that was something that just stood out to me, and it still stands out to me. I saw Batman 89 in Adobe Theater a few weeks ago, and for me, that was one of my favorite movie theater experiences. Still stands the test of time. And it was nice to see with people who clearly hadn't seen the movie before, just laughing at the Joker's lines. I could see the complaints about Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, comparing him to Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. I can see that. I think that if you were going to give the slight edge, maybe to Christian Bale in certain aspects, I understand if people put Christian Bale above Michael Keaton. I understand that too. I totally get it. I just think I give the slight edge to Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton also, he had to really get into that rubber suit a little bit hard. I don't like what they did with him in the Flash because I just don't really like the movie that much, and his character feels out of place in the Flash like universe and that kind of DC universe that they had going on. Dark and gloomy Tim Burton universe is where Michael Keaton's Batman belongs. Just want to continue on, see what you guys. Let's see. A lot of movies are filmed at Tyler Perry Studio in Georgia. I had a friend actually who worked down there. He came back to Long Island, but when he lived in Georgia, he worked down there for Tyler Perry's studio. So yeah, that a lot of people do work for Tyler Perry down there. That's where but a lot of filming has moved down there, which is pretty cool. Obviously that creates more jobs in Georgia, which is something that all you can ask for. So it's pretty cool. Tyler Perry, he's creating a whole job market down there for his films, which you don't get a lot of releases on Netflix. My wife absolutely loves them, watches them all the time. Kevin Conroy is the best Batman. Yeah, it's kind of hard to debate. Like that's always I get caught up on this. It's a real struggle with me when it comes to like Batman. And I have a Batman. It's kind of hard to see, but I have a Batman tattoo right there. That's the Dark Knight logo on my wrist. Always wanted that when that movie came out. The Dark Knight for me was a revelation. If you've watched the show for any amount of time, that's what I like to call a watershed movie moment for young John Keefe. I saw that movie 9 times in theaters during its initial run, including 3 times in one day. I got my 10 when it came out for its 10th anniversary, but I'm not as in love with that movie as I was at the time. A lot of that was the anticipation, getting caught up in the marketing, just friends, I was at the right age at the right time, and everything. The stars aligned for me on that one as well. And now looking back on it, it's not a perfect film. I'm not in love with the ferry sequence at the end. Its message about like spying on people, fell on deaf ears because we took that to the next level. That's for damn sure. So, the government spying on us, we didn't care about that at all. That's for damn sure. David said that's a tough one because my favorite encapsulation of Batman is Burton films and the '60s TV show. Really? So Keaton and West for me, but I don't dislike dislike Kilmer, hated Clooney, found Patterson uninteresting. You know what? I respect that. And as far as Conroy goes, again, to circle back to him, I was also a big fan of the Batman Arkham games. Actually, Arkham Asylum is still in my top 5 favorite video games of all time. And Kevin Conroy comes back. Most of the voice actors that they're able to bring back come back for that. And it's awesome. I love the Arkham games. They get a little bit too out in the weeds by the third one once we start throwing in the Batmobile, but the original one and then Arkham City were two chef's kiss beauty. Of course, again, being the Batman fan I am, it felt like a continuation of the early 1990s Batman the Animated Series, which I will still throw on episodes. I probably watch Heart of Ice, the one episode, at least 4 times a year. I think that's one of the best TV episodes of all time, and that they should try and adapt into a film. How do they extend it out? I don't know, but I think that the Mr. Freeze character that's in Batman the Animated Series would fit perfectly into the Batman series of movies, the Matt Reeves universe that they're creating. I would love to see that. David also said, I don't think voice actors can be considered as the same as conversation as someone on screen. I could do a brilliant Batman voice, but on camera, I'd be a bad Batman. David, unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you to come on here then and do your Batman voice, because are you saying you're better than Kevin Conroy? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying. And I don't believe that. But no, I literally get caught up on the exact same thing as you. That's my true feel, because like I do think Mark Hamill is a phenomenal Joker, and I do think Kevin Conroy is a phenomenal Batman, but I get caught up on it's a voice acting performance, so it's only a part of the performance because you're not actually in the suit doing anything. You're not actually fighting, all that stuff is animated. So I get a little bit caught up too, but Kevin Conroy's voice is amazing, and it's something that when you hear it, you think of Batman. So you get a little bit caught up on that. And I struggle with that too. I don't know how to feel. I personally love animation. I'm not one of those people who poo-poos animation and like throws it to the side. Like, oh, it's kid stuff. Truly love animation, even though, like I said, I've had a hard time with anime. I do still think it's tough to get over that like hump sometimes. And I have that problem as well. So I'm always curious what other people think. Especially like, cause I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. I don't know. Can't do it that well. The loudest moment ever is a theater for me as Batman getting out of the pit in Dark Knight Rises. It was even louder than the end of Avengers Endgame. That's actually crazy. Really? That's the one? I mean, I saw that at an opening night. I mean, my theater, I saw it late. So I was like, it was still at the time where you went to a midnight release. So It came out technically at Friday at midnight at the turn. That's it. That's when the movie started, was at 12. So people were kind of tired. I remember even being tired in the middle of that movie where he's like down in the pit, like it felt like they were kind of dragging the movie along. But then when I saw that at home, so it's pretty cool that you actually got to experience that for the true what they were intending to do for that moment. It didn't work out in my theater that way. I wish it did. Avengers and Endgame with the hammer was a huge one, and also Hulk smash was a big one. I remember got a big crowd reaction out of people. What else was big pop moments like that? There's some moments in the Star Wars films, even in Solo. I remember the crowd going nuts when they with the name, and I thought that was the cheesiest thing. I was like, that's why he's Han Solo. uh I don't know. I don't want to say they aren't acting because they are, but Mark Hamill said himself he can't play the Joker because he's 5'2". LOL. I mean, you and I are both Batman 89 fans. One thing that has become more apparent as I've gotten older is how the Joker looks. I never really looked at like Jack Nicholson too much in the movie when I was younger, just because I guess you as like child's perspective, people just look older in general, no matter like what their ages are. So I never looked at Jack Nicholson as old, but Jack Nicholson is like an older guy. He's got the gut on him in 1989 Batman. Like he looks like a guy in his 50s, but whereas I think that they want us to think he's a guy like in his 30s still. So I kind of noticed that as well. But once he gets in the Joker suit, it's like no big deal and get the makeup on him, and he's just like perfect acting. But you do like see him like when he's sitting in the chair in the beginning, and he's got the gray thinning hair, and it's like, oh, that's the guy who's going to become the Joker. And I think like they've tried to like shift it towards a more younger view since then. Like I guess the Joker, the animated series, is probably like in his like 30s, early 40s as well. But yeah, like there's no way Mark Hamill today though could play an older Joker 100%. After I saw in The Long Walk, you could do an older Joker story with him. Have him and Keaton go back and forth right now. It'd be a little sad in the movement, but I think we could do it. Freaked me out at the IMAX. That is awesome. Yeah, that moment, the Trinity test in Oppenheimer, I had to see it 3 times in theaters. It was so good because of that, all in IMAX. That's why I still say that's his masterpiece. I've only seen it now once at home. I gotta actually rewatch Oppenheimer. It's been a while. It's hard to set 3 hours aside to watch a movie though, just because of I try and watch movies with my wife too, and she's not always game for that. I've been in a Robert Altman mood. So 2 nights ago I watched Three Women, and then last night I watched Nashville, and there was no way my wife was gonna watch Nashville with me. So she went in the other room. I watched Nashville. Nashville's still pretty good. I wouldn't say it's Robert Altman's best film. It's tough to say like what his best film is. Robert Altman's one of the greats, but yeah, there's no way she's gonna watch any Robert Altman 3-hour Nashville films with me. I wish she would, but she's not going to. But so obviously, you guys have realized that by now that Dennis isn't going to be joining us today. He ran into some technical issues, and then he's had some work issues going on. But it's Dennis. We forgive him. He'll probably be back for next Tuesday show. I think the live show is going pretty good. It kind of works out in a way because I couldn't stay too long today. Today I got to take the shaggin' wagon in my automobile. She's due for her annual inspection before the month's over and get an oil change. So I got to go take her there and drop her off. And hopefully, they go gentle on me because I am poor. So I don't want them to bend me over a barrel. But we've all been to a mechanic, and we all know what they can do. Got to find a trustworthy one. But continuing on the underrated actors and actresses list, as I repeat myself, the next one I had on here was Sam Rockwell, who did also win an Academy Award for a Martin McDonagh film, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Thought that movie was great. I have only seen it the once, though. I saw that in theaters. That was one I didn't necessarily love the ending, but Sam Rockwell's performance was great in it. Not his best performance, though. Not a lot of people have gone back and watched his best performance, which is from Duncan Jones, son of David Bowie, Moon. That I think is his best performance. Sam Rockwell plays, multiple characters in that movie. I'm not going to actually spoil that because if you've never seen Moon, try and go into it blind. That's a great go into blind kind of movie. But it's somebody basically doing one performance, and anytime you can get that, it's incredible. And he does a phenomenal job in that movie. But he's been around since the 1990s. The Green Mile, he was phenomenal in that. He's really funny in what's that movie that came out in the late 1990s? I Galaxy Quest. He was great in Galaxy Quest. Then he kind of disappears for a little bit. He shows up in Iron Man 2. And then people started to really realize that he is a phenomenal actor and started to use him more. The way back, he was so good in that, which is a great coming of age movie. So Sam Rockwell, I feel like always was somebody who got overlooked as well. I saw a trailer last night called I Swear, the true story about a young Scottish man growing up with Tourette's syndrome. It had rave reviews. Really? Oh, I must be one that's probably coming out in time. Like, no, now this is my favorite time of the year. I love summer blockbuster season, but once we start getting into the fall season and getting into like obviously spooky season, that's like the title of this video is like talking about what we've been watching for spooky season. But I also love that we start getting like the film festival films, the films that are going to be jockeying for awards this year. So all the movies that the studios believe are their best films, all the independent films this time of the year. This is where I love. I love that we get to look at those intellectually stimulating films, and that this is what I love. Even though I love summer blockbuster season, getting out of the hot sun and going into a theater, getting the soda and popcorn, that's all fun and all. But yeah, there's nothing like going to a theater in the fall and seeing a great film as well. Moon is such a classic. I'm glad you agree with me because that is a great one. Good morning, John. Good morning, Jeff. Glad to see you in here. I'm just letting you know, yeah, Dennis isn't in the show this morning, so it's just me. It'll probably be just a slightly shorter show as well, just because I got to take the car in to get an inspection. But, I'll still be here tomorrow for Let's Talk Physical Media. Nicholson appearance is all relative to the story. He's the Wayne's killer, so he has to be older. Plus Nicholson was the perfect choice to Joker in 1999 despite his pudgy appearance. David, I didn't want to say anything about his weight. Like I did say he had the gut, but yeah. And that's also the classic story of I think me and you talked about this when Michael Keaton's doing workout in his, getting ready for his performance. So he's doing push-ups, sit-ups. I think he bought himself a bar so he can do chin-ups and everything like that. And Jack Nicholson is walking by his room and sees him. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, working out, trying to get together. And Jack Nicholson just looked at him and goes, why? Jack Nicholson's not the workout type. He's not a gym rat. So obviously it shows. Which me and you you're probably more than Michael Keaton to me being Jack Nicholson as far as physique goes. Obviously, you're much thinner and taller, much shorter and pudgier, leaner, leaning more closely to the Danny DeVito side than anything. I actually start my spooky season movie watching in the middle of October because I'll be at New York Film Festival, which starts this weekend. That's awesome. Oh well, hey, you're in my neck of the woods. I'm over here on Long Island right now. Eventually, I would love to go to the New York Film Festival. That's something that I'm working towards. Unfortunately, this is not a full-time job as of yet, so I still have my regular Joe job that I have. That's where my loyalty lies at the moment because that's what pays the bills. But eventually, I would love to be. My dream was always to be a film critic, but I've got to do it in this kind of space. But that's awesome, man. I'm super jealous of that. I wish I was going to the New York Film Festival, but man, I hope you have the time of your life. That is great. But yeah, I get why you would be starting spooky season a little bit later because yeah, that's more important. And it's tough. Like I've watched a ton of spooky season movies this year so far, just because we got the Nightmare on Elm Street collection coming out a week from today. So I know that's going to be taking up a lot of October. Plus October has not just that coming out, you get Altered States coming out on 4K Blu-ray, In the Mouth of Madness, Nightmare Alley, we're getting X, Pearl, and Maxine, the entire Ty West trilogy on 4K Blu-ray from A24. Eddington is coming out, one of my favorite films of the year. Weapons is coming out next month. What else are we getting? Rocky Horror Picture Show is getting a 4K Blu-ray release. So October's been tough. So, and I also still want to watch Halloween and Halloween 2 and 3. So there's plenty of other movies. So I've been kind of pushing back stuff and watching in September. Like I've watched Jason Lives and what was the other one? I watched Jason Lives and the New Blood, which is, oh my God, horrible. But that's what I've been watching this spooky season so far. Watched Child's Play and the Child's Play remake. Also, I think I'm going to try and watch Possession with the wife tonight because I think my wife would like that, especially if I tell her that that's Jenna Ortega's favorite horror film. And, forget listening to her husband who watches literally 300 plus movies a year. If Jenna Ortega likes a movie, that'll get my wife Faith to watch a movie. This is what I got to deal with, guys. Like, forget that I do the research. It's the life we lead. As I'm sure you guys, I have Moon soundtrack on vinyl. Beautiful, phenomenal. I'm so glad he said that. It's just not. It's very rare. I run. It's such an underappreciated, underrated movie. It kills me. The Descent. The Descent is a great one. So that's a great September horror movie. But that I think is getting a 4K in November. So that's probably when the Descent will get put on. I don't want to watch it now. Then watch it again in a couple months. Although I watched Scream 2 weeks ago, and I'm gonna watch Scream again because speaking of David, aka Shamrock Balls, this one's a Scream on Jason Takes Manhattan did not go on the screen, David, and you know why. Although I might watch Jason Takes Manhattan. I might watch Jason Takes Manhattan today. Today on the agenda, besides getting my car taken care of, I'll be editing our Judgment Night video, buddy. So hopefully that's what gets completed today is Judgment Night. And of course, talking about the car, getting that. But maybe I can show my wife Jason Takes Manhattan and maybe push her to watch Possession. She me and her line up on Jason Takes Manhattan, though we're not huge fans of it. But moving on down the list, I next up on my list again. I just kind of made a list. I got Laurie Metcalf. Laurie Metcalf, for me, at my age, the first place I ever saw her was on Roseanne. So she was just always Roseanne's sister. That was it. That's what she was. And then you find out that she came from this Chicago comedy troupe, performed at Second City. She was, one of the big, I think she was friends with John Candy, which makes sense because she was friends with John Candy because of Uncle Buck. And she's in Uncle Buck. Like, she gives a little great performance in that. And she was popping up. She's in Scream 2. She gives a good performance in that, even though Scream 2 is probably my least favorite Scream. But then recently, in movies like Lady Bird, people started to recognize that is Laurie Metcalf a great actor? And it's true. She really is. She's a phenomenal actress. And she never truly got her flowers. I think people started to I think Lady Bird finally people noticed. But, even on Roseanne, she's so good on Roseanne. How did Roseanne nail? How did they get her and John Goodman like that? When you really think about it, how did that show get two world-class Academy Award nominated actors? And I hope John Goodman. If John Goodman's not nominated for an Academy Award, then put him on this list as well, just based on his Coen brothers performances. Absolutely insane. Judgment Night is great. Yeah, me and David, I think, did a a very good show on that we'll be sharing with you guys on Friday. Started the edit yesterday, but it's a long one, so that's pretty much how my day off from my regular Joe job today looks as I'll be editing Judgment Night. And luckily, me and David have really found our footing. And I think the show, if you guys haven't been on the Let's Talk Movies podcast yet, which, you might see the long running times and be like, that's a little bit intimidating. Just throw it on when you're on a walk or something, on the bus, at the gym. You don't have to watch the video. Just listen to us ramble on about the movie. And I think as David says, we perfected the formula. So I really think Judgment Night's another one for people who appreciate that underrated 1990s film. We're going to really like our review on that coming out later this week. But yeah, Judgment Night, that's a great one. Moving up the list, I got Ken Watanabe. Speaking of somebody who's in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, like obviously I first came to him because of movies like Batman Begins. He has a very small role in that movie. And then he's in Inception in a pretty big role. And then I started looking into him, and obviously he's not really that famous in America. And I think he's very famous in his home country and, obviously in Asian markets and all their films. He's very famous. But here in America, I don't think he gets his flowers enough. And Ken Watanabe, he's also got this distinct voice, like this distinct look when you see him. He looks like somebody who just demands respect. He's a very stern kind of looking guy. And I've always really appreciated his work. And I think people have, maybe overlooked him like I did because they didn't come around to him until movies like The Dark, until Batman Begins or Inception, like Christopher Nolan because Christopher Nolan does have this talent as well to really get the best out of actors. Just look at all the different actors that he has in Oppenheimer. Everybody gives great performances, and some of them you'd be like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I mean, doesn't Josh from Drake, what's his name? Josh Peck from Drake and Josh. He has a small, he's starting to even pop up and give little performances, people getting the best out of him. So it does happen. But Ken Watanabe, what a phenomenal actor in my opinion. He was in John Wick also. Yeah, John Wick, that's another one that got some phenomenal actors. But yeah, he was great in John Wick. Which one was he? He wasn't in the original one. Was it in 4? Might have been 3, but yeah, that's another one. The John Wick films find a way to get a lot of international actors as well. Give them a place to really shine here in the United States. Oops, I'm deleting my list. Where'd it go? Okay, and at number 2, I have where I wrote the same name twice, but I meant to say John Leguizamo. John Leguizamo is a very underrated actor. John Leguizamo, I feel like also kind of became a punching bag for a lot of the stuff he did in comedy, but people always overlooked him in Spawn, which I always bothered me because he gives the fourth one. Okay, perfect. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. People overlook Spawn in general. I always felt like Michael Jai White was great in that movie, and I thought that John Leguizamo as the clown is insane, but he gives a committed performance underneath all that makeup. Most of his lines are ad lib, so throughout the entire film, he's just giving it his all. He's giving a 10 out of 10 performance. Maybe you could argue that the movie isn't great, but he gives a committed performance. He's really funny. And like if you go from Benny Blanco from the Bronx, if you go all the way back to Carlito's Way, but maybe the first time a lot of people saw him, they might have thought he was a great actor. Then people will say, "Oh, well, what about the Super Mario Brothers movie?" It's a cheesy mess, but it's still a very entertaining cheesy mess. And it's not like Bob Hoskins wasn't in that movie either. So, or well, Dennis Hopper was definitely high on cocaine the entire time, but still, he's having a good time. But that movie itself was like, I don't know what the hell. It's one big long acid trip, but you can't necessarily blame John Leguizamo. John Leguizamo, somebody again, the John Wick franchise of movies. People are starting to realize that this guy could act as well. He's got a very distinct voice. You can always tell it's him, but I think people have to come around and start really appreciating him a little bit more. And I think they finally are. The guy's been going since the late 80s and, still looks really young too. Makes me very jealous. And then just to move on to the number one, who I think is the greatest. And I didn't put this in any order, but this is absolutely who I believe is the most underrated actor of all time. Somebody who else has popped up in the John Wick franchise, but he's so much more than that. Should have won the Academy Award for his performance in Boys in the Hood, and that's Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne is by far the most underrated actor of all time, and you start to understand why. I've heard a podcast with Quentin Tarantino talk about Lawrence Fishburne and how he was originally supposed to play Jules in Pulp Fiction, but his agent had a problem with him not being the lead at the time and only taking lead acting roles no matter what the film is, and I think that's why we get like the mid-90s low from Lawrence Fishburne, but he still is somebody who should be like, he started out in Apocalypse Now when he was a teenager, goes throughout the entire 1980s. He pops up when he's still Larry Fishburne in a ton of movies like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, just in a kind of, could be forgettable performance, but it's still Lawrence Fishburne. And then obviously we're building up to the early 90s when he does give that performance as, the father to Trey in Boys in the Hood. He's phenomenal in that movie. Like that's a performance that should have won him an Academy Award. Then he's in a movie that I think is one of the most underrated films of all time, along with Jeff Goldblum, directed by Bill Duke. Deep Cover. Like if you've never seen Deep Cover, one of the best noir films. Love that movie, and he's great in that. And then he comes back around and gets really popular again because of the Matrix films, but he's still giving great performances. He's in Mission Impossible 3. He always knows what movie he's in. Like this is a guy who can show up in a movie like Contagion, a very serious film, but also overact his ass off in the John Wick movies because that's what those movies call for. And Lawrence Fishburne, being the world-class actor that he is, he could pull off that performance in all of these different kinds of movies without worry. The best thing to come out of the movie was the Roxette song. Well, Roxette, a very underrated 1990s band. Not enough people. I mean, Joyride's a classic, is it not? Larry Fishburne, serial action stole his career. LOL. Yeah, well, Samuel Jackson was another actor who really didn't get appreciated enough until the 1990s. You can say Tarantino made his career. And, of course, Jules is his most famous and best performance. But, I mean, it's not like he wasn't in, like, Do the Right Thing and a lot of other Spike Lee movies before that. It's still crazy to me that they dubbed him in The Exorcist 3. You dub Samuel Jackson, a person with one of the most iconic voices of all time, and you dub him? Unbelievable, in my question. I like John Leguizamo and executive decision. Oh yeah, he is an executive decision. I haven't seen that movie in so long. Oh, I forgot about that movie. Actually, I was just talking about that movie. That's like kind of one of those movies that falls in lines like with Turbulence, where you just kind of forget about it, which I think I did a 4K review for Turbulence, but if you've never seen Turbulence, that's a great movie that you should watch as well. One thing we got to take care of today before I get out of here is also the magic wheel. We got to spin the magic wheel for our digital code giveaway. So let me add this to the stage right here. And we'll spin this bad boy, and I'll keep rambling and rambling and rambling. I hope today's show wasn't too surprising for you guys. 2 weeks in a row, Dennis and I have the morning show was kind of let you guys down, unfortunately. But hopefully Um, I literally made this whole thing up on the fly, if I'm being honest. Thank God for that question from Ben Rondo last night. That's why there's not really a thumbnail. So I hope the show was entertaining enough for you guys and you enjoyed it. Let's see. Speaking of which, who is this at Biden Divine? I don't even know. Either way, congratulations. I'm not going to try and butcher that name. Remove that, spin it again. You can't argue with the wheel. The wheel speaks for all of us. Uh, you know what? We know in Marks and Mabel. I'm not even, again. Wow, two crazy names won this week's digital code giveaways. Congratulations! You guys have your choices of these digital codes right here. I'll show you. The only thing that's not accurate is, besides all that, is that some of these codes have been taken. I tried to put the Let's Talk logo on it so that you don't have to worry about that. But I do but some of these are taken. As far as these ones go, Tron was taken last week, but look at it. So ignore Tron, but Tron Legacy is still available. Kroll's still available. To Catch a Thief is still available. Taking the elevator, going up. Thanks for at least still playing along, buddy. Yeah, we can't play that anymore. Unfortunately, they flagged us for that, and I don't know why. I'm thinking independent artists, people probably find that song more here than anywhere else, and they should. They should cherish that song. The artist who wrote "Taking the Elevator, Going Up." You know what? True artists. But if you guys want a digital code giveaway, make sure you reach out to me at letstalkentmt@gmail.com. Let me know which of the digital codes you want. As long as the other winner doesn't take that digital code, that one is all yours. As far as like social media goes, you guys can also reach out to me on that. You don't have to go to my email address. You can also reach me on Instagram. Get a little bit less lately. I just because it's kind of bumming me out, and then I get caught up in it. So I kind of haven't really been sharing stuff on there. So really make sure you just subscribe to the channel because that's always the easiest way. I make sure I'm sharing everything with you guys first and foremost. And it doesn't seem to make a difference anyway with social media and me sharing things, probably because I wasn't very good at it. Not a social media guy. Never was somebody who got into it. I always like the long form stuff like this, like we do here on the channel. Chatting with you guys, talking movies for a longer amount of time. I think it's a little bit hard to get a whole review in like a minute and a half. I feel it. I know some people like that, just want to know if something's good or bad, but I like the more nuanced conversation. I think this everything operates in the gray. Not many things are perfect, and not many things are absolutely awful. Same thing about human beings too. We villainize people, and not every human being's bad, and not every human being's a saint. It's just there's always something. We all have flaws. Believe me, you see what I look like. We all have flaws, don't we? But yeah, like I said, this was a little bit of a shorter show just because I had nothing planned. Me and Dennis, unfortunately, he had his work issues and then he had some computer issues, but I still think we had a pretty good conversation here today, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Tomorrow night, let's talk physical media. I have a great show planned for you guys tomorrow night. So hopefully you guys are there. I know it's more people usually tune in for that one. Hope to see you guys there tomorrow night if you're awake. Apart from me, I'm perfect. Yes, David, 110%. There is not a flaw in you for you, not a flaw in you. You are my Clarence Boddicker. You look exactly like him. Just need those damn glasses. You need the Jeffrey Dahmer glasses, and you can pull it off. But thank you guys all for being here with me today. If you're going to be around tomorrow night, 6:45 p.m., I'll see you guys then. If not, I'll see you guys all back here next Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. Hopefully Dennis is here. If not, I'll be here. It's all cool. We'll still do a live show. We'll still talk movies. Anything you guys want to talk about. Enjoy your days, guys, and I'll see you around.